All right. Here we go. Hopefully we don't have double audio this time. Good to go. Yeah, this is a weird news story. For those of you who are not aware, the British are involved in training Ukrainian troops, and they have been for quite a while now. Actually, in country before Russia really started to pop off, but yeah, the British have been threatened by the Russians that if any British troops are in Ukraine training Ukrainians, you are a valid target. So don't come to Ukraine because we will go after you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Yo, what's good, Blake? Make sure you guys like the live stream because, again, this is a case of the British sort of backpedaling and creating drama for absolutely no reason. And real quick, I found this interesting. I found this picture of Ukrainian troops training in the UK. Notice they're wearing American multicams here, or OCPs, with ACOGs, it looks like. But those are British rifles. Just found that interesting. Okay, so the number of troops that the British train, 23,000 recruits from Ukraine have received combat training in the UK. And again, if you're watching this live, please like this. We'll get into this because the British, again, why would they train in Ukraine? Like, what is going on? So they've already trained 23,500 recruits since 2022. Earlier this year, Britain's government committed to another 20,000 recruits. That's a lot. They've been training a lot of Ukrainian recruits. But then out of nowhere, we have news headlines like this. Russia could target any British soldier training troops in Ukraine, Medvedev says. So what is happening? Are the British trying to go into Ukraine? Are they not trying to go into Ukraine? Well, we have a very vague statement coming from the British Minister of Defense. And he simply says, you know, we're training the Ukrainians, but eventually we would like to train inside of Ukraine. Why would you say that in the middle of a conflict where you know that Russia is already heated? And Russia and the British have always not been the greatest of friends, even since World War II. I mean, the British eventually wanted to push into Russia. That's another story. So this explains everything. Russia could target any British soldiers training troops in Ukraine, Medvedev says. But stick with me in this video because we're also going to talk about how the United States and the CIA have actually already been in Ukraine, technically during this war. We'll get to that in a bit, but let's go ahead and cover what Russia is saying. And to be quite honest with you, can they legally do this? Are they breaking rules of war? I don't know. I don't think so. That probably is a valid target. That's a very gray area. Because you are an armed combatant and the Russians see you as the enemy. Good to see all you guys here. Hope everyone's doing well. What's up, Tyler? Make sure you guys are liking this live. All right, here's what Russia said. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev said on Sunday, any British soldiers training Ukrainian troops in Ukraine would be legitimate targets for Russian forces, as would German factories producing Taurus missiles should they supply Kiev. Or Kiev, depending on what language you speak. That's a weird one. I don't think Germany would be a legit target since they're not in Ukraine. Otherwise, the rule of thinking here would be, well, the United States would be a target. Medvedev, who is a deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council and has become increasingly hawkish and anti-Western figure in Russian politics, said such activities by the West were bringing World War III closer. Thank you for being here. And of course, this is on Telegram, which to me is still the weirdest thing ever. It's like the Russians operate through MySpace, essentially, and this is how they get their news across the internet here. In a post on Telegram, Medvedev first directed his ear towards recently appointed British Defense Minister Grant Shapps, which if you've been recently appointed as the defense minister and then all of a sudden Russia threatens you, you might be doing your job correctly. Who said in a newspaper interview that, okay, this is where things get a little weird. Like, I still don't know why he would say this. And then check this out. The UK Prime Minister actually had to backpedal. Grant, who said in a newspaper interview that London wants to deploy military instructors to Ukraine. So he said it. In addition to training Ukrainian armed forces in Britain and or other Western countries as at present. This will turn their instructors into a legal target for our armed forces, understanding perfectly well that they will be ruthlessly destroyed, and not as mercenaries, but as British NATO specialists. Now, what this actually sort of reminds me of is before the United States formally got involved into Vietnam, we also had instructors. You had special forces, Navy SEALs, or like the Black Ops guys before it actually became special forces. And they were valid targets. If they were hit by stray fire, can NATO get involved? I'm not sure. So this is a weird one. Now, of course, the British had to backpedal here and be like, hold on, we're not going into Ukraine. Everybody calm down. Again, this is an odd publicity stunt, in my opinion, to really cause drama for absolutely no reason. And again, if you're watching this live, make sure you're liking this live, because I like all you guys. And thank you for the compliments, Marjan. UK Prime Minister Sunak says there are no plans for now to send British troops to Ukraine. Again, they're keeping the door or the sentence open-ended. Like, just say we're not going to Ukraine. And even if you are going to Ukraine, you don't have to say it. Okay? We're playing with people's lives here. There are no immediate plans to deploy military instructors to Ukraine. And when they say military instructors, we're, of course, talking about SAS, SBS, Special Air Service, Special Boat Service. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said on Sunday, rowing back from comments by his defense minister who had suggested that troops could carry out training in the country. And again, to date, Britain and its allies have avoided a formal military presence in Ukraine to reduce the risk of direct conflict with Russia. Now, I'm going to show you guys something that many people have seemed to forget about. Because technically, the war in Ukraine has been going on a lot longer than 2022 and what most of us think of the conflict in Ukraine. First things first, the first people to really go into Ukraine when Russia just walked right into Crimea was the CIA. And what's interesting is that like mainstream media and big publications were actually like, why is CIA Director Brennan, why did he visit Kyiv? In Ukraine, the covert war has begun. So when this news article came out in 2014, this is before there was anybody actually knowing, or the CIA did finally formally announce, yes, we have been in Ukraine to train Ukrainians to stop Russian advancement. So this is not me being like tinfoil hat, Alex Jones, any of that, or Joe Rogan eating mushrooms. There was already mainstream media being like, CIA is in Kyiv all the way back in 2014. But again, there was no formal special conflict or a war. So understand this. The United States has always been in Ukraine from the very beginning of this conflict. And what's even more crazy, beyond the CIA, in case you didn't know, I was actually in the Army when this happened. This was a really big deal when this happened. I was in the 101st Airborne. We're like, oh, crap. We're training for Syria, but we might be going to Ukraine. What is happening? 173rd Airborne Brigade arrives in Ukraine for Fearless Guardian. This is back in 2015. Everybody ever forgets that this happened because now of the news cycle, we talk about the today. But understand the United States military has actually been in Ukraine theoretically during this conflict. But of course, this conflict was happening on the very far eastern portions of Ukraine, the Donbass and Crimea. At this point, Crimea was essentially annexed. But it's interesting because back then, the Russian military, it was Wagner and it was the Little Green Men. There was not an understanding of what was about to happen. And so CIA was there, U.S. military was there to already train Ukrainians. But Russia, now that we have more of a formality of a conflict, if you will, whatever you want to call this, because I say it like that, it is a war, but Russia calls it a special operation, special mission. No way, Jose, are they going to allow the British to get in that country. Absolutely no way. Someone said mushrooms are great. Mushrooms are great. Steak, eggs, and mushrooms, yeah. So yeah, this is an interesting one because I'm going to be honest with you. Although I think that the Russians are no bueno, they shouldn't be in Ukraine, I also don't think we should be, like, political leaders should be instigating anything. I don't think we should be saying anything about any of this. Yes, we would like to have, the way that they said it, we want to train in Ukraine. We want to eventually train in Ukraine. But that's still all open-ended. And to be honest with you, if you walk into that country right now, anything can go because Russia gets away with whatever they want. I mean, understand Putin is technically a war criminal. So, yeah. Somebody said I like black pudding. It's a very British thing to say. Hours after the interview was initially published, Sunak said there was no immediate plans to send British troops to Ukraine. Okay, no immediate plans, but yet I said it. What the defense secretary was saying was that it might well be possible one day in the future, maybe one day over there sometime, possibly in the future, in the next several years, for us to do some of that training in Ukraine. You know, all of the training that we're doing in the UK where we can do it safely. Maybe one day we'll do it in Ukraine where we could become targets. It might instigate World War III. Like, what are you doing, bro? But one thing this does go to show is that, unfortunately, in NATO, you don't have total, like, communication between the nations. I mean, you have Turkey buying energy, coal from Russia. You have the British making statements like this. You already had the United States in Ukraine, and so it's sort of like a cluster, you know, of bad things happening amongst NATO. So I think NATO needs to sort of figure it out and make sure everyone does come together so we don't have more statements like this. Because, again, this was just a bunch of drama for nothing. And then, to me, it's hilarious that the British have to be like, we're just kidding, we're not going to do it. But that's something for the long term, not the here and the now. There are no British soldiers that will be sent to fight in the current conflict. Someone said, if you don't like mushrooms, you need to see a doctor ASAP. And then, of course, Dmitry Medvedev. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think Russia is in the right to be like, we can attack you? Regardless if you like Russia or not, I think it's important when you look at these conflicts and these statements. If the British go in there unannounced and then they get taken out, do we now have to go and defend the British? That's what I'm a little afraid of. A conflict over nothing. And the same could be said for really any other nation. So, yeah, that's what's happening right now. The British out here making them statements, bro. All right. Thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you guys learned something. Again, this was sort of a little bit of hype. I don't think the British will be going in there anytime soon. Their cover has been busted. All right. Thank you guys for being here. Make sure you guys go comment and like the posted video. YouTube has been really weird lately, so go ahead and comment on the posted video so I can read your comments and we can create a nice discussion. So thank you guys for being here. Love you guys. Happy Sunday. God bless.